Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the budget meeting of November 17th, 2025 to order. Good morning, Council, good morning, staff, and good morning, viewers. Madam Clerk, could you conduct roll call, please?
Revimo.
Present.
Councillor Legree.
Present.
Councillor McWhirter.
Present.
Councillor McDonald.
Present.
Councillor Cebulski.
Present.
Revimo, we do have quorum.
Thank you. As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we're extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Are there any declarations of interest, pecuniary or otherwise? Seeing none, thank you. And budget items for consideration. That the Budget Committee received the Budget Committee update report for November 13, 2025 as information, and further staff be directed to amend the budget as discussed. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Legree, Councillor McDonald. And I'm assuming Treasurer Hodge, you want to lead this off? Okay. Yep.
And I'm going to throw this out to you. I have 5 different motions that I'd like to address, and I don't know if we need to suspend the procedural rules for this, or can I just bring forth the motions? What would you like?
Are they budget related?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
In terms of
Sure.
direction and regarding efficiencies?
Okay. All right.
Would you like me to do a formal?
If you could just, yeah.
Okay.
Just a motion to suspend the rules.
Thank you.
And then we'll just do them one at a time.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The council suspend the rules of the procedure as permitted under the town's procedural bylaw in order to address on a timely basis 5 motions arising from the current budget committee deliberations. And I can identify the 5 motions when required. Go ahead now.
You have to identify them.
First one is Public Budgetary Advisory Committee with regard to short and long-term approach. Number 2, actively engage Renfrew's East End Secondary Plan and Mask and O'Brien. Number 3, a staggered 2-payment process for Renfrew Chamber of Commerce. Number 5, merging of Public Works and Parks Rec for efficiencies. And number 6, open floor for discussion of the 2025 budgetary mistakes that were made.
Okay. So quickly, I think probably 3 of them are part of this conversation, and then 2 might be after we're done this discussion.
Yes.
Yeah. So the one on the conversation about the mistake from last year probably is after the fact to talk about process going forward, and then I think you talked about a long-term plan to identify. My impression is you talked about the long-term plan, which is the 5 to 10 year approach, with recommendations back to as a guiding document. So I think that might be after this. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, and so, okay, so if you could just remind, okay, so, yeah, I'm just trying to go as slow as I can to get it out and get good conversations on each one. So can you just pick one that you'd like to talk about right now, and then we'll do 2 other motions.
Thank you, Reeve. I'll go ahead with the first one. The motion is that Council direct staff to prepare for the creation of an advisory group comprised of experts with the necessary skill sets to assist and provide input to the Town of Renfrew Council and staff, with the objective of being, number 1, providing short-term guidance and recommendations to support the 2026 budget process, and number 2, developing a long-term strategic approach, including consideration of the 2027 budget process and the formulation of a potential 5 to 10 year financial and operational plan to address and move forward from the town of Renfrew's current financial crisis, and further that staff be directed to provide council with proposed terms of reference and a defined scope of work for the advisory group for council's consideration. So that's the end of it. The reason why I'd like to bring it forth now, Reeve, is if we're able to utilize some of the expertise of this group for the 2026 budget as we work our way through it.
Okay. So you've moved that, so we need a seconder to get it on the floor for discussion. Okay, second by Councillor Legree, and you look like you want to talk about it.
Through you, Reeve, just a question to Councillor McDonald. So the advisory group, is that set up as council, or is that part of residents too? And who are you thinking of making that advisory group up?
Thank you, Reeve, through you. I'm leaving it up for the discussion of the floor. I'm thinking of bringing in some of the potential experts that we have within the public to assist or provide their input as we navigate this financial situation we find ourselves in.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and CAO, please.
So through you, Reeve, I just want to make sure I understand, because right now we're in budget committee, so a recommendation to create a group, I believe, and the clerk will have to confirm through the procedural bylaw for me on this, but I believe that that recommendation would have to go to council, so the next week for actual approval. And then to actually establish terms of reference would be December 9th. By that point, your deadline to getting budget amendments done is again running to an end, because we can't create the group and start anything until the terms of reference are approved. So I'm trying to just make sure I'm understanding what's the expectation and what procedural permits here.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Reeve, through you. Thank you, CEO. And I understand it may not work for the 2026 budget, but if we're able to at least start moving in that direction, as we finalize and work through this budgetary process, maybe it's something that they can provide input on as we come near the end of this working group, or sorry, at the end of this committee. So if they're able to assist us with 2026, I'm comfortable with that. If they're not, then at least we've established a direction moving forward.
Okay, so I'll pedal in place for a minute, give you a chance to organize your thoughts. So one suggestion I might make is that we look at, once we get this completed, we hold a second public meeting with what our end product is, with and it would, I hate to use the word structured, but it would be structured in the sense that we would have Mr. Hodge present the budget, maybe have some foam boards out in the hallway. We'd take about a half hour, people could walk through there, take a look at it. It's sort of like what we do when we do our public consult for roads. Roads project, then bring them back in and let them have some ask questions, and then council could move forward with the budget process, and then, as is suggested, discuss the idea of a longer-term approach with the 5 to 10 year outlook, with recommendations as guidelines for future councils based on what the discussions with the panel would be with the terms of reference. Is that kind of where you're headed?
Read through, yes, but also leave it to the floor for input as to what they'd like.
I'm sorry, clerk.
Sorry, through you, Reeve. Just so I'm clear, so we're still at the point right now where we're going to vote on the suspension of rules, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we're not discussing the individual items, but just really what the suspension of rules is going to entail and which motions are actually going to be put on the floor.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure I was clear.
Nope, just trying to be, okay, so we'll vote on suspension of rules. So I just wanted to make sure we kind of knew where we're talking about the stuff. Okay, and the other two items very quickly, just so we know what we're suspending the rules for.
Thank you, Reeve, through you. The other one would be the staggered two-payment process for Renfrew Chamber of Commerce, much like we did for 2025, to continue on with that, and the potential for merging of Public Works and Parks and Rec for efficiencies. Those are the next two.
Okay, I just was consulting because I thought the merging is strong mayor powers. That's I think that's under the strong mayor legislation, so we probably, if you wouldn't mind, would put that off for a later discussion, get an opinion on that, would be my suggestion.
Reeve, and I was thinking with regard to that one, to provide direction for his, I realize it was under strong mayor powers, but to provide direction for him and input.
Okay, so you've heard in brief what the three motions would be. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Reeve. Not to cut you off, but I agree with you with regard to the merging of the Public Works and Parks and Recs for efficiency. We'll put that off to afterwards.
Okay, so we're going to withdraw that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to be suspending the rules to talk about two items.
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed now? And then if you'd make your motion on that first one again, please.
Thank you. The motion is that Council direct staff to prepare for the creation of an advisory group comprised of experts with the necessary skill sets to assist and provide input to the Town of Renfrew Council and staff with the objective of providing short-term guidance and recommendations to support the 2026 budget process. And number two, developing a long-term strategy approach, including consideration for the 2027 budget process and the formulation of a potential 5 to 10-year financial and operational plan to address and move forward from the Town of Renfrew's current financial crisis. And further, that staff be directed to provide Council with proposed terms of reference and a defined scope of work for the advisory group for Council's consideration.
Seconder? Councillor McWhirter, and then discussion.
Just a statement. I like the idea of the committee. I think it might be a little too late for input for this budget with the constraints we have, but I like the idea of having an open house again, inviting them back before we vote to finalize the budget as is, just to get their input. Having listened to them, there were a number of items that were mentioned and ideas that were mentioned that probably when they get into discussion with us, they would find they're maybe not feasible or would take some time to do. I really like the idea of a committee input from different aspects of the town. So I'd like to have that for next budget in place, a committee to assist with input. I think that's a great idea. It's very straightforward thinking. I'm surprised Councillor McDonald it would be so forward thinking. I'm just kidding. I think it's a great idea. I think it's great input from the town. I think moving forward, it's a great idea, to have different aspects of and different people in town inputting their ideas, business and whatnot, as we do the budget deliberations. I just don't think at this time, with the timeline we have, it's feasible to do, but I would love to see that for next budget next year. So just my 10 cents.
Thank you. Councillor Legree and then Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Reeve Emo. I'm in favor of some of it, and some of it I think I'm not. I like the idea of putting a plan together for the next 10 years. I think that's any corporation that kind of has that. I think the town needs to do that too. With the advisory committee, I'm not overly excited about that, I guess. I think we need to, I agree with Councillor McWhirter, we need to have open, like town halls and that, and open houses where they can come in and talk. But if Councillor McDonald's idea is to have people from the public sit in on a group or an advisory committee with council to make these decisions, I'm not really for that. I think that's what our job is as council. You got to be very careful there, because I might want a swimming pool, so I'm going to sit on the committee to push for that, where we as council need to hear the voice of the whole community and do what's right for everybody, not just a certain group. So I like the idea about looking at a long-term budget plan, but I'm not on board for having the actual public sit in on an advisory board. I think that's council's, that's why we are here, so that's my thoughts on it.
And Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, through you. I'm thinking more in terms of financial and budgetary considerations, not necessarily input for swimming pools or that sort of thing, or paved roads, but just looking for a skill set from some of the people that have it to bring forth and provide input, not necessarily direction. The other one is I think it addresses number one with what Councillor McWhirter stated, providing short-term guidance recommendations. If we open it up to your point earlier on with a second open house and whoever's interested can come, I think that deals with that first part. So.
Thank you. And Councillor Cebulski.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. Lots of good points. I am somewhat skeptical about too much public input, at least especially in a group that's helping create a budget. I like the idea of the creation of the budget with what we have with staff and council, but I would like to see a greater respect paid to the public portion, in that the comments that they are given towards the budget have a greater amount of time for staff and council to utilize those comments. We've had to extend the rules and ask for more grace because we were only given a few days to take public comments and turn them into actual usefulness. So I would like more respect given to the public when the opportunity comes for them to speak towards budgetary items. So a longer time from the time they speak to the time we have to close a budget.
Okay, thank you. I'm just so yeah, the strong mayor stuff is really complicated budgeting, as we all know. Secondly, and I agree with Councillor McDonald. We should have a long-term plan. He and I have had those conversations. But we can't make it a plan because of the strong mayor. But we can certainly, I think, offer some kind of a guideline under a different name rather than plan to the next councils. And at the same time, I am cautious about a public group because of mixed agendas. Firstly, next year's an election year, and then secondly. I like it in the sense that you know, if you have broad representation from across the community, then you get some nice sound intelligence as you move forward as to the needs and trends of the community. Like, for instance, the population of 80 plus is going to double by the year 2040 in Ontario and in Canada. So, you know, that's a significant wave going forward of services, and accessibility just springs to mind as well, because most people are going to stay at home longer. You know, that's the trend. So, you know, I think those are the kinds of things that group could help with. You know, I think the group would have to be structured, and you mentioned terms of reference, so the terms of reference are going to have to be very carefully crafted, because sometimes advisory groups get offended if their advice is not taken. You know, if they put forward 10 recommendations and all of them are ignored by a council, then you've got a public relations issue on your hands. It doesn't matter if the group is well formed or not. It just looks bad that you're not paying attention. So those are my only comments off the hop. You know, I think it's worth moving down this road, not in any great hurry, but I think, you know, the motion has merit, and we can take, once we pass it, we can take it apart as we move forward and look at the individual parts. You know, I think the first piece, you know, that we would likely concentrate on, respectfully, would be to get the budget done and have a second public meeting in a sense that people could have a look at. So those are my comments, and if anybody else, you know, I don't think Councillor McDonald's in a hurry with this. I think, you know, I get the impression from his head nods that he would be okay with tearing it apart at a future date and going at it bit by bit. And so that's, you know, that's probably how my support would go on this, is because of that approach. Is there anybody else have any comments? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you, Council. And then your second motion, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Very straightforward. The Town of Renfrew adjusts its annual $10,000 payment to the Renfrew and Area Chamber of Commerce so that the allocation is issued in 2 equal installments, and further that the second installment be released approximately 6 to 8 months after the initial payment, contingent upon the confirmation of the Chamber's financial viability as endorsed by the Town of Renfrew's appointed board representative.
Seconder? Councillor McWhirter, and discussion? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Reeve. Just the background to this. This is the approach we took this year with the 2025 year budget, and I think it's a good approach going forward.
Okay. Any further comment? Not fully having been briefed on the dynamics of the BIA, I'll take that. Chamber, my apologies, the Chamber. we'll take that as advice. And having seen no other comments, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None? It's carried. Thank you. And then your next motion, sir. Oh, that's it. Okay. And with that, we'll move to Mr. Hodge.
Thank you. Through the chair. So today we're following up from November 12th's public budget meeting, and the information on today's agenda is the information that was also available at that meeting, which provided updates for the budget binder for tabs 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. One of the things that was updated for that was the confirmation of the OMPF funding, which was $41,250 higher than we'd estimated in our first budget. I'm just starting out looking at the report that's the cover of the package. So I'm just going to quickly just make a couple points there, and I believe then we'll look at the operating budget itself. So I've also included in the information today the capital project summary that reflects the Budget Committee's direction on October 31st. And in tab 3, we'll have options there that reflect possible ways to fund that, which is another area we'll look at today. And also, I was going to make just a couple points in regards to the public meeting. It's interesting coming from the discussion that I'd also said that the intention would be to look at more long-term planning and integration of different strategic plans and master plans of the town. I do think there's no doubt that will happen. It's just in the short time here, I'm looking forward to that and diving into that definitely into the next budget's processes. One other little point I wanted to note was, and this will we'll see this later on in the operating budget, is to date, to the end of September, the consumer price index is 2.4%. So that's where the StatsCan's measuring inflationary effects. And when we get to the end of the operating budget today, the total expenses at the end, the increase there year over year from the 2025 budget to the 2026 budget is actually 2.3%. So that's the increase in expenses in relation to CPI at the moment. And as we go through the operating budget, we'll notice there are many lines that have a zero variance because a lot of them we've tried to hold the line, and department heads have tried to make sure that they're being economic and efficient there. And definitely this budget represents maintaining levels of service at current levels, which is something I wanted to make sure we're all conscious of as we look at the 2026 so far. And we've already looked at the slide presentation November 12th, so I'm not going to go through that again right this moment. We also have provided an updated reserve sheet, and as I said, with capital borrowing options is in the package as well. And of course, this morning we have the Deputy Treasurer, the department heads, the CAO, all collectively available if there's any more granular questions that may arise from this committee meeting that we can look at. And the operating budget starts on page 31 of the package, and unless the committee would like to look at the capital options first, I thought for the effective use of time, the chair may want to direct whether we start directly into operating so there's time available versus lingering on capital as we've done in the previous meetings. So.
Okay, I think I see a page here that talks about the capital budget and it's entitled 66 potential, and then maybe that's, if you could just review that, because the public doesn't have access to this, so if you could just review that process, that progress.
Sorry.
So it says capital budget. I don't have a page on this, but it's still, I don't think I have one. Oh, yes, I do. Sorry, page 17.
Page 17.
Yeah, my apologies. It was in the blue.
Yeah. Okay, so on for page 17 for the capital budget, as we'd mentioned the other day, we started out with over 60 potential capital projects, just about $21 million, and now the Budget Committee has refined that to 34 projects with a subtotal of $12,088,180. And we were going to look at some more funding strategies in follow-up to that, and that capital summary, of course, has all the prioritizations versus critical and things like that on our summary. And were you thinking we were going to look at the funding options?
Yeah, if you don't mind, because that was our
so
first task from last meeting.
Yeah, so if we want to go to page 30 next. 30? Okay, so on page 30, capital borrowing options, we are looking at, provided 4 examples here, listed option 1, option 2, option 3, and option 4. Specifically for the capital projects that were in the debenture column or the internal financing column, option 1 reflects what was presented in the package, where it has $7.2 million in debentures. And what I've done there is I've also listed Hall Avenue and miscellaneous roads that would come from reserves, so we can sort of see that as a whole for some of those larger projects. The total of those projects is $9.8 million. So in option 1, we look at what the effect on the levy might be. So if you go down to the bottom, there's a levy effect for 12 months and a levy effect for 6 months. So on option 1, if it was a full 12 months, the effect on the levy to finance $7.2 million through debentures would be $4.88. And for half a year, because we look at whether the projects come to completion, say, through the construction season, whether it's in the fall or near the end of the year, half that, of course, would be 2.44. Jumping ahead to the next options. Option 2, we've shifted. So what would happen if we put the landfill slope and the pumper rescue under internal financing and only debentured for Monroe Avenue? And the next option 3, we've moved that around again to give scenarios where if we did not do Hall Avenue and miscellaneous roads, but instead use those reserves from Monroe Avenue, move the pumper to debenture, and internally finance some other items, the effect on the levy would be reduced. And then we've moved those things around in option 4 and taken away larger project of Monroe. And that would drop the levy even further to 1.33 for the year or 0.67 for half a year. So what we're going across there, we're looking at options that would reduce the effect on the levy for payments of the funding through debentures. One other option is for option 1, if you were to internally finance the landfill slope and the pumper rescue and move those first 2 top lines from debenture in option 1 to internal finance, the 4.88, you would take off 1.07, so it would be 3.81. And it would shift the interest down. And then one other thought there is if those projects get completed into the end of the year, because they're large projects and they take time, the debenture were to get done in 2027, then in theory you could postpone those payments on the budget until 2027 is another option, and there would not be a levy effect then, because those debentures would get finalized in 2027 if the project's wrapped up in late 2026.
Okay, so just a couple of quick questions for Director Bishop. So Monroe, Harry, and Hall, are they going to require extensive underground work for water and sewer and runoff? And when I say that, are they going to need bigger pipes and not just replacement of old ones?
Through you, Reeve, yes, they will. All of them require extensive underground work.
Okay. Then my next question is to Director Withers. My impression when I'm thinking ahead a little bit is Hall, because of the extension out into Hall 2 and the likelihood of housing being out there, because we don't see that as being industrial land, we see it as being housing land. And then when I look at the east end of Harry, where it butts up to Hall, I see larger lots that potentially, with some older houses that could be utilized in the future for triplexes and stuff like that, given the size of the lots. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, through you, Reeve. That's correct. So I think from a development perspective, Hall Avenue is probably a higher priority in order to set the stage for the future extension and really the building out of the master transportation plan, that kind of three-leg evolution that we see with Hall Avenue, O'Brien, and then the future leg through the Eastlands. So in order to make progress there, you need to get Hall done. And there's also some trunk infrastructure on Hall Avenue that's part of that scope of work that's fairly critical as well.
And for the clerk, is the submissions for Roma, or has that deadline passed?
Through you, Reeve. So the deadline is tomorrow. We are currently working on the 6 submissions that have been discussed by council at this time. I believe infrastructure, the Hall Avenue extension was part of that. In a roundabout, I would say in a roundabout way of overall supporting infrastructure in the community. But yes, it is fastly approaching.
Okay, so my thoughts are, given that we have that submission to go forward, we broaden it a little bit to include the west end, I guess, of Harry, the end closest to Hall, with the understanding that we use the example of the corner of Allen and Francis, which has been turned from a single into a triplex, with the suggestion that we could foresee that happening on Harry. Thus, we'd be meeting the provincial housing. There's at least 3 different acts. I can't remember them all. Building faster, building smarter, building stronger. I don't know. All those little catchy ones. And I'm not being sarcastic. There's too many of them. But that we're meeting those guidelines, and then ask for extra funding on the infrastructure for that. And I'm looking at Director Withers and Hall to see if they have a comfort level with that, because essentially their names would go on it, and they'd have to defend it. So, Mr. Withers, you're okay with that?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, Director Bishop, that makes sense from a technical perspective? Okay, so council, just throwing that out there to try and map out something for today and over the next few years. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Reeve. Through you, with regard to option 4, defer the Monroe and Harry one. Did we talk about that previously, about maybe staggering out through 2 years, the 2026, 27, to absorb it into the 2027 budget too? Can I have input on that?
I don't believe we did a resolution, but I think that was part of it, was to, in my simple way of doing things, started in middle of 2026 and spread it over 2027 into the second part of it in 2027. Yes, that's kind of how I do budgeting. So,
and
yes.
Reeve, just to follow up, then we don't enter into the debenture until the project's finalized. Am I correct on that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you start off with a construction loan, and I'll turn to my two friends to confirm that.
Yes, and then, yeah, timing-wise, even if you were to budget the whole project in 2026, you may not finalize that debenture until early 2027. It's possible as well, in which case the effect on the levy would become part of the 2027 budget.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir?
I think what's also maybe just for staff, just to kind of keep in our mind too, whenever these projects we do debenture them, eventually if we do go through that route, we could probably bring some sort of proposal or resolution or solution to, you know, this is going to impact the 27, for example, for hypothetical sake, hit that levy, but we also bring a financing source. If pretend the burden on the levy is 100K, but we bring, in year one, we finance 50K out of reserves to reduce the levy impact and then kind of phase in the levy impact for these debts, that might be something that we could consider. Just something for council to keep in mind as well, or committee, sorry, to keep in mind as well, because it doesn't always all have to hit all at once, our financing strategies.
And can you remind us about, I think we have a debenture coming off the books.
Thank you, through you. Yeah, there is one coming off the books in 2027. It currently only impacts the water budget, but it does alleviate some ARL room, but it does impact the 2027 water. I think it's the water treatment plant. I think it's water treatment plant.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, so open to suggestions and a plan forward. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Reeve.
I feel like we're playing pitch and catch here.
I'm leaning towards option 4, but interested in other people's opinion. With the idea of Monroe and Harry starting it, you talked about internal financing with a construction loan and looking at a debenture in 2027. At least we spread it out, but I'm interested in other people's opinion.
Yes, Councillor Zabulski.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. And just to keep the conversation going, is that not what the 6-month portion is to help us do? So if we were to put 6 months on this particular budget, that's half of the entire project, say in option 1. So therefore we increase by half margin 2026, and then the other half comes on 2027, as compared to having none on 26 and everything coming in on 2027. Can I have that clarified? Is that the way I read that?
Okay. Gentlemen?
So the way that this reads here on this page is if the project was completed and it was to be fully debentured by, say, June 30th, which is fairly aggressive, the levy effect would be like 2.44 for option 1, the bottom line there. So even extrapolating that even farther, if it took until, say, the 4th quarter of the year, it could be half that again, because it takes that long for the project to reach completion, then for debentures to be organized. And there's a process there as well. So that's why when you're borrowing, it's not uncommon for it to reach the end of the year or move like into the next year, because especially with those being large projects, and then if the project is fully budgeted now but then staggered, so part of it completes in 2027, then it would get debentured after that.
Deputy Treasurer.
I think, and I'll happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, I think the intention of this sheet is to get guidance on how council would like to finance these projects. So that's what the options are. And I think at the prior meeting too, Reeve, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there was discussion about combining Munro and Harry. So that's why those were put in the debenture as like 2 items. Again, I think we're just looking for direction on which option to go. I think there's an option 2 with an option 1 with an asterisk that the treasurer identified, where it would be the landfill slope and the pumper rescue would get shifted over into internal financing. All 4 of the first 4 items that are identified would get at project close. We'd be able to identify the impacts on the future levies, but I just wanted to make sure there's clarification there. We're just kind of looking for which option you just want to go through.
Yeah, you are correct, and it was, I guess it was me that pushed the lumping of Harry and Munro together, because I think what we talked about was Harry, then around the corner and down Munro, X number of meters. I can't remember how many. After we left here, I drove around and looked at several times now that whole section, walked a little bit of it, trying to figure out. And looked, took my somewhat foggy crystal ball and looked out into the future, and then decided to offer the option of matching up Hall and that end of Harry, because that end of Harry is probably the roughest section as well as having, I would think, the oldest infrastructure there, given the amount of dipping, crossing, lines crossing underneath. But that's only my opinion. Sorry, CAL?
So through you, Reeve, another item that can be considered if internal financing is a method you wish to go. Internal finance, you could choose to not actually have your internal payments on internal financing start until 2027, which means there wouldn't actually be a tax impact on 2026 for that piece. So as an example, if you were looking at option 2, the 1.07% shown for the internal part wouldn't necessarily have to happen unless you wanted to actually start the payments in 2026 from an internal standpoint. So that's the other piece to consider as well if internal financing is an option, though internal financing can be a good way of managing so long as we have the cash flows to address it. So that would be the information that would need to be considered by Treasury.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor McWhirter.
Through you, Reeve. So on their option 4 for Hall Avenue and miscellaneous roads, I think when we talked about that earlier, when you have it down under reserves, is it the reserves the provincial government gives us? That's what we were using? Wasn't there some grant money that we get, and that's where that, when it says reserves, it's actually coming from that portion, I believe?
I believe it's the OCIF and the what is commonly known as the gas tax funding, but please correct me if you don't mind, gentlemen.
Yeah, that was kind of the mentality that came out of the previous meeting direction, was to work on it that way.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I'm looking at my pages hoping one jumps up and says pick me, so I guess I'm going to have to pick one. Councillor Legree?
Through you, Reeve Emo. So just so I'm clear, option 4, we're deferring Munro and Harry totally out of 2026, so we're not starting anything or doing any work on that?
Sorry, that's what option 4 states, but I think we were kind of looking at our own option 4.
Yeah, okay.
But I'll leave that to, so my impression was our option 4 was the 6-month, was to take Munro and Harry, go ahead with them. Go ahead with Harry and Hall, my apologies, with 6 months of it in 2026 and 6 months of it in 2027. And I like what the CAO was saying about deferring the internal payments as well. So that might be an option. Sorry, Councillor McWhirter?
So to follow that, so you're taking out miscellaneous roads from the reserve taking that out of option 4 and you're putting the other 2 in along with?
No, I'm sorry, I kind of thought we would leave that because those are some of the smaller projects that really tick people off if we don't get them done.
Okay, so Harry and Monroe you were putting in option 4?
Not Monroe.
Not Monroe, just Harry. And where was Harry going? Internal finance?
We were going to carry that, we're going to, a two-pronged approach. One was we're going to, okay. So two-pronged approach. One was to pitch Harry and Hall as a housing important bit of infrastructure to the province to look for funding specifically for that and proceed with it. So we would know that going into the middle to end part of 2026. And I think if we're successful, use it. If we weren't successful, figure out if there was a way of moving forward. But the idea is to spread it over 2 years regardless.
So if I follow, so if I get this right then, so if we don't get to be able to include it, we're not going ahead with it? And if we are going ahead with it,
I think we'd end up going ahead with a scaled down version, but we'd depended upon what staff tells us.
So if we went scaled down version, where would the funding come from? Reserves or taxation?
That's what we're going to hear about right now.
I have two responses to that, or for information for that. The Harry identified here is actually only a section from Monroe until Joe, further, just to the corner, so not even to Joe. So this isn't the Harry at the section by Hall. So maybe a recommendation would be if we want a portion of Hall into Harry, is that what you're, like similar to Monroe into Harry? That might want to get identified as its own project into there, and then Monroe and Harry just to the first corner. Like it's only, I don't have the hundreds of meters, but Director Bishop might have that. So including Harry and Hall together here is not a similar area. This is Hall and then the far end of Harry by Monroe.
Yeah, thanks.
So, yeah.
Good, because, thank you. Now, I do know that on the books we have all of Harry. I'm sorry, Director?
Through you, Reeve, I just want to clarify. So this is the first section of Harry from Monroe, and over the next several years, the plan was to kind of continue on with that up to Hall. But currently, the first section of Harry is designed, and Harry and Joe is the next part, which is Harry up to Sydney. So the end at Hall is not designed yet. So to proceed with that right now is not really an option.
Okay. So we can scratch that. Sorry I wasted your time with that. Okay, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Reeve, through you. So we're back to option 4 with spreading out Monroe to include Monroe and Harry over a 2-year span. That's the way I'm leaning. I don't want to defer it indefinitely, but I think we spread it out over 2 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, and then...
And I forgot to ask the most important question. If you include those, what's the tax implication for that? Because I assume it changes from what it's sitting here at.
So if we take a look at the option 4, it tells us the levy effect for 6 months is 0.67, or the levy effect for 12 months is 1.33.
That's including those 2 projects into option 4?
CAO, I'm sorry.
So to clarify from what I'm seeing on this page, and I'm asking the treasurer to confirm, right now option 4 does not have Monroe or Harry in it at all, so that tax implication, it does not include that. If you were to proceed but plan for internal that doesn't actually start to 27, it would be the same numbers, but otherwise, if even part of it would be in 26, you'd be looking at an impact. Is that correct, Treasurer?
Yes, so option 4 does not include Monroe and Harry at all. So if you are including it, you're looking at option 1 essentially. But when the payments start, is how we budget that is how it affects the levy. So the levy effect here is by, if it was the first effect, 4.88, that's for if you are starting your interest and principal payments as of January 1st, which is unlikely. So that's like the maximum effect. Even 2.44, starting it in like halfway through the year in July, that's still probably aggressive. So it's going to come on to the books late in the year. So it's going to be even less. It could be even half that again for just quarter 4. So like 1.22 if you take it down to 3 months. So timing is really the question. What is the timing of when that comes into play? But then for the following years, that's still a full ongoing effect on the levy. The 4.88, that would continue on once that borrowing is there every year thereafter.
Okay, sorry, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Reeve, to you. So to the treasurer, I understand what you're saying. I just want to get it confirmed. So basically, option 4, when we talk about spreading out Monroe and Harry over 2 years, we're basically talking also option 1, but spreading it out over 2 years, right? They're similar.
Yeah, I would say you're still talking about option 1. It's just how we budget it which is based on timing.
Deputy Treasurer.
Maybe I feel like I'm kind of hearing that the committee's appetite is to not have these impact the 2026 budget, but that they'd like to move forward with the projects in 2026 and then have the debenture and the internal financing come on the books in 2027. And if that's the case, what I'm just wondering is if committee if these are approved projects and staff tender these out, when the award comes in, staff will determine financing sources, as well as whenever we have to roll the debentures in, that'll have to come back to council for signing and for approval. At that time, if there's a period within 2026 that maybe the debenture has to hit the books for from September to December, hypothetically, a third of the year, at that time, staff could bring a financing solution or recommendation to the 2026 portion, which then does not require us to have it impact the 26 levy, and then it can be included in the 2027 budget process for a full year of payment, or however long the payments are going to be on for. Maybe I'm misinterpreting. I'm just kind of looking for some.
Okay, Councillor Legree.
Through you, Emo. So I'm kind of going towards option 1, but have the road to 2 projects split between 26 and 27. And once conversation, I don't know if you need a motion, but once conversation is done with it, I'd move that.
Okay, I'm sorry, Councillor McDonald. I'm just doing.
Thank you, Reeve, through you. And I'm on the same page now that I understand option 1 and option 4 are similar. I just want to see it spread out over and I guess to the Treasury too. Would it be more important to spread out as opposed to the levy hitting hard on 2027, right? In terms of the financial impact, is it wiser to spread it out over the 2 years so that we're not getting hammered in 2027 with a drastic increase?
Ready here? Okay. Sorry, I just didn't want to jump in case there was a procedural concern or something. I just thought we should check with the director. I think if these projects are approved, and the intention might be to physically complete them all in 2026, not do half and sort of cap it and then come back and do the other half. So I think we'd want to just clarify that. But then on the budgeting side, we can budget it so that the levy effect is partially in 26, but then, yeah, budget-wise. Because I think you'd want to approve the full project because it may be the intention to bring it fully to completion in that year.
Director Withers.
Yeah, thank you. If we are proceeding with option 1, I just want to make the manager and I really like the idea of moving the landfill slope to internal financing, it opens up an option in the operating budget for some potential savings. Thank you.
So I was going to suggest option one with moving the pumper and landfill over into internal financing. If we could accommodate that, I think that would really would allow us some flexibility. Okay, and Deputy Treasurer.
Again, just to kind of piggyback on what the treasurer was saying as well, the impact, again, if the intention is no budget impact in 26, there could be alternatives considered in the 27 budget process where instead of 4.88 hitting in 27, 2.44 hits in 27, and the remaining additional 2.44 hits for a full 4.88, but you'll only feel the half in 2028 by financing some of the debt in 27 and then having the remainder hit the levy in 28. So it could be a multi-year approach too as well.
And Councillor McWhirter.
Through you, Reeve. So if we were to do, I like your idea, move the landfill and pumper truck to internal. If we did that, does that affect the 4.88 or 2.44? I'm assuming it would.
And CAO?
So the best way to kind of see that on paper that's already in front of you, option 2 has those two items over, and you can see that it was a 1.07 just for those two items moving into internal. So if you go with option 1 for everything else other than those two, that 4.88 would be reduced by 1.07 because it would become internal financing. It would move it from external to an internal line, if that makes sense.
Councillor?
So I like that idea. That works for me. And I like the idea that Deputy Treasurer Ferguson had about separating it out and into the over 2 years, and then it's less of an impact, especially this year when we need it the most, when we're looking for the savings this year. So I like that idea.
Yes, and I think just to remember, although we would place an order for the new pumper rescue next year, it's 2 or 3 years out before it's delivered, and it would be maybe a series of staggered payments. So we're not putting $1.1 million out on January 1st of 2026. Is that correct, Chief? You're nodding yes? Good. Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Reeve, through you. And it was just mentioned option 2, but with option 2 and option 3, we're eliminating the Hall Avenue Part 1, I believe. I just want confirmation on that. And we're eliminating the miscellaneous roads. So they're a bit different than option 1 and 4. Am I correct on that?
Yes, I think what the CEO is pointing out that is, she was just noting that by moving it over internally to the internal side, it's a 1.07 decrease in the demand on the levy. Okay, so am I safe in assuming that we would accept Councillor Legree's motion with him making a friendly amendment to it? That we would accept option 1 with the understanding that landfill slope and pumper rescue would be moved over to internal finance. Would that be fair, Councillor Legree?
Yes, it would.
Okay, and who was your seconder? I'm sorry, Councillor McWhirter? Oh, we don't need a seconder? That's right, we're in committee. My apologies. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you, committee. And next, Mr. Treasurer, if you could move on to the operating.
Thank you. So for the operating, we could go to page 31. It starts there for the operating budget and goes through to page 50. And we've added, since previous committee meetings, 2024 budget and 2024 actuals for comparison, so that the committee can see that as it changes into 2025 and 2026. The variances on this report, I would say, have been highlighted in previous meetings, and it's I presume the committee may, if the committee would like to go line by line, they may want to do that for organization, just start going through and asking questions of staff to see why certain departments made certain changes or have certain variances from the budget in 2025 to 2026. Otherwise, we could just point out some things, but it might be better to go, if the intention is to go line by line, that maybe that's the next step.
Okay, I'm just wondering, would council like about 10 or 15 minutes to just go through this on their own? So what we'll do is we'll take a break until 11:10, and that gives council a chance to find a corner and take their little yellow pens and go through it. Yes, sir.
Just a question. So the mayor, using his strong mayor powers, just hired 2 more staff for recreation. Is that included in this, or because that does go in the operating budget? So and we're looking to cut things. I'm just wondering if that's had any effect or if it's changed any of this in the rec department.
Treasurer's department.
If I understood correctly, that those positions are to replace people who are not currently able to work in those positions. So the FTEs will be staying the same.
So, sorry. So they're already filled positions, because it didn't read that way in the proclamation that was made.
Okay. CAO.
So to clarify, the 2 positions were filled up until a short period ago, and there's a current absence because of a couple of leaves, sick leaves that have happened that look like they might end up being extended ones. And so by what the mayoral decision has done has basically said that no, get your 2 replacements, which will not impact the budget because you're already budgeting for those 2 roles. It's just instead of these individuals, it'll be 2 other individuals on a temp basis, and then when they return, these ones would be back off. So it's filling what's already in the budget, but it's currently just dropped to vacant.
So it's a contracted basis, or?
Yeah, it would be a term contract, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Reeve. Through you, to the treasurer, just before we go on our break, because there's a lot of numbers flying around. With regard to the operating budget, what's our levy at for that right now with regard to the operating side?
So this is the information that was presented at the public meeting. So this hasn't changed since then. There was no direction for change. In that summary sheet that's in here, that would be tab C, it's 8.81 still. Yes, because we had not had any effect on the levy from capital as it's presented at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we'll see everybody back here at 11:10. Okay, good morning to everyone, and we are back in our Budget Committee session, and we're just about to start into our operating budget deliberations, and I'd ask Mr. Hodge to lead us through. I'm sorry, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Reeve. Just a quick question to the Treasurer. We talked about before the break the operating levy, and I was given a number of 8.81. I'm looking, I think that's for the total operating capital. I'm looking if you have it for just the operating itself. And if you can explain to me with regard to the cost of living, how it compares. So I'm looking for the levy rate with regard to just the operating budget. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll just switch pages here 1 second. If we go to page 14 in today's information, if you look at the couple pieces of information here that I think address that. In the box here we have the levy increase. So overall we're looking at 25 versus 26, 1.1 million, which in the red is 8.81%. And so to your question, if you look at the breakdown below, the line in the middle, this is capital reserve contributions, 1.2%. You could remove that from the 8.81 and that would give you 7.6, which is more representative of the operating levy impact as it's presented at the moment. Just above that, the total, or actually, I'll go to the very last page of the operating budget in regards to total operating expenses in the this is page 50. Sort of jump to the punchline. The second last line, total operating expenses under the 2025 budget column is 23.1 million. It says 23,152,892. If you go over a few more columns to the 2026 budget column, that total operating expense is 23,684,388. So the difference there in the variance column is 531,000 in additional expenses. So that is an increase from the 2025 total operating expense to the 2026 total operating expense of 2.3%. So the total operating expenses there at the bottom of this operating budget increased 2.3%, whereas the CPI at the end of September is measured at 2.4%. So we're actually just under, but basically accounting for CPI at that point. That 531,000 is a larger impact on the levy than on just against its own expense. It's more like a 4.25% effect on the levy because we measure 1% increase at about 124,000. So that increase represents about 4.26% levy increase, even though it's a 2.3% expense increase.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions before we start? Okay, and I don't know, I don't imagine you want to go line by line, but do you want to go at least department by department? Is that, we'll start there, and then we can just break it into lines as we go through it. So, I'm sorry? Director Treasurer?
Oh, sorry. Just the way this budget flows relative to previous ones with this system, revenues will come first. And so it goes in,
Yeah.
You'll have all your revenue line items and you'll have by department. And then there'll be an expense budget. When we used Assist, it would, and all that data was fund accounted. So you'd have, for example, clerks, you'd have their revenue and then their expenses showing before you moved into different departments. Just so you know, this is going to be, you'll be looking at revenues first in all departments and then you'll go in expenses for all departments. I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so based on that, if we start down in the revenue section, it's broken down by section there as well, but like Deputy Treasurer just mentioned, it starts with just the revenue. So I'll just quickly go through the revenue section. First subtitle is election management, all zeros, so that's an easy one. Next one is clerks. So going down, you can see there's I'm just looking at the last column, the variance column. Very small change, $303. So basically no change under clerks. Corporate management, $300 the other way. It's the next section. So at that point, nothing's really changing. It's 300 in, 300 out in variances. Going down to the finance section, we start to see other changes, which the first line, OMPF, is increasing, provincial grants increasing. We see where we've accounted for the change in miscellaneous revenue in regards to policing at 462,000 variance, which we've discussed before and looked at. Other small changes to things like other fees, tax certificates, and some penalties and interest. Just continuing down, just as an overview here, as a summary, corporate communications, no change. Development charge, no change, no budget. Reserve transfers, we see transfers from, so a bit of an increase there, which we know we've done a levy stabilization increase of $158,760, which was a previous direction of the budget committee. So that's the increase in revenue there. Special events, minimal change. Income property, slight increase. Taxation levy is where we're showing the main number, which is the variance of 1.1 million, which is the increase over the previous year's levy, which is discussed in our presentation slides as well. It's one of the numbers we've pulled out and highlighted at each meeting. Down to fire, no real variance. Police revenue, no real variance. Bit of change in how the police service board's presented. And as you continue down, like the next page, you'll see like very, very minimal variances coming down. A little more revenue in recreation programs on page 34 in the middle. Recreation facilities, we can see we've made that adjustment as previously discussed for a change in floor rentals, which is one of the main things we started with our first budget presentation. A small change in library, almost no change in museums, planning and zoning, committee of adjustments, going down, BIA, all basically holding steady. And at the bottom, we see total operating revenues are increasing by $844,000. And then we move into the operating expenses, which is where the chair suggested that we may start to look at that more specifically.
Okay, thank you. Just a very quick question. When I look at solar on page 34, so it looks like we're headed to a more realistic projection on budget in terms of revenue. We started at 80,000. It was in 2024, and it dripped to 42. Last year was 50, went to 53, so this year we're at 50. Just out of curiosity, is this where we think it's going to be? Because I think the last few years the projections have been optimistic. So is 50 a solid number projecting forward?
I would say scanning these year over years, it looks like a good adjustment, but with my not in-depth knowledge of the history of this, I may look to the Deputy Treasurer to see if he has any other insights on that.
I would agree. It's we can definitely revisit it as part of the 27 budget. I think it's a good estimate for 2026. What's important to note is the solar panels were down for a little bit as well, which is where the dip went from 80 to 50. They were down for a bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, Manager Springer, but they've been fixed. And so that's where we should start ensuring that we're getting more revenue generated through them. But this is probably a pretty conservative estimate at this point and wouldn't put us in a bad position.
And if I remember correctly, they are about 8 years old, and the expectation was they'd it would take 20 years to pay for them and they'd last 30. Is that kind of the formula, or is it lesser than that? And I don't need an answer right now, but I think it might be something if we have to start putting money aside to replace them. Thank you. Any further questions or comments from council on the revenue side? Staff? Okay, seeing none. And Director, Treasurer.
Thank you. Through the chair, if the intention is to go by category, then would your intention to be to look
Please.
to who's responsible for each area? So I guess election being the first category.
Okay. And Clerk?
Through you, Reeve. So elections happens every 4 years. We do set aside money into reserves every year so that the impact in the year of election isn't as substantial. In taking a look at past, the figures that are there are based on past elections and kind of a rough estimate as to what we feel will be needed for next year's. The biggest part of that budget includes our contractor that will host our alternative voting, which is online, telephone, as well as our digital scanners. It's all roped into one, so that would be votes. And then there's elections training that's part of it, as well as material that's needed for kind of the day of and the lead up to. So if there's any questions on those line items, let me know and I can discuss.
Deputy Treasurer?
Just one little caveat. It's currently being financed through a transfer from reserve, so the net impact to the operating levy is 0 for the election itself.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing none, we'll move then to Clerk.
Okay, through you, Reeve. So the clerks or the legislative services department kind of handles about 3 different budgets, both the council, overall clerks, and then our communications and marketing. Council is based on both the remuneration component of it, which is set by bylaw, to how much each member of council receives for their kind of overall training and development, as well as overall expenses. We have an outgoing council and an incoming council to consider. So some money has been identified in addition to meals, mileage, subscription. I will note we did make a decision to remove one of the subscriptions that I don't think is getting the value that council would like to have for it. We're looking at a more of a digital option rather than a printed. So I will note that one of the line items, 1430154030, which is the subscription, did include an $810 kind of magazine that is being removed or recommended for remove. Again, I don't see the value that council's getting out of that. With regards to the clerk's budget, we've identified kind of both overall material and operating expenses. The promotional expenses in this category is fairly low. Really, it only represents our town pins, which seem to be a fairly popular, especially for visitors. So that budget's fairly realistic. It's kind of every year that money comes in and kind of goes out the door. With regards to memberships and associations, professional development, and contracted services, again, fairly straightforward, similar to year over year. Contracted services, I would note, Integrity Commissioner is under professional services, so that's the item or line item ending in 5150. That will be reduced, I believe, by about $2,000, only because of the code of conduct being conducted this year. Originally, I had set money aside for the review to happen in 2026. However, considering we're undergoing that right now, I think that can be reduced. And then with regards to the contracted services, this section here Does include both our IT that happens during council as well as our records management. Currently there's about 20,000 that's set aside for shredding. IT, which that's the setup of our digital folders that are needed for our Tom Rims classification, as well as some accessibility funds to start getting some of our documents up on the website that need to be in accessible form. And in order to do that, there is either a software that we need to purchase or a company, a contractor that we need to work with. So that money's been identified there. And then what I would do is also, actually no, I'll leave the communication part until we get to that section. So if there's any questions, please let me know and I can discuss.
Okay, council. All right, we'll move on then to, I think the next one is finance. I'm sorry, or it's, corporate management. My apologies.
All right. For corporate management, looking down, there's starts, as each category does, starts with salaries and wages. Actually, a slight change there, slightly less, but basically the same. Adjustments for benefits as well, which is, you'll see in every category, essentially the year-over-year adjustments get made there. On the next page, on page 37, one thing that we did make note of, I believe, in a previous meeting is breaking out some grants between the NHL committee, the Heritage Renfrew, the Sunshine Coach for the $15,000, and the Golden Age activity for $22,795. So those have been broken out by line for transparency to show which group gets which, and it's a little easier to track or to answer that as we review that as a committee or as a group, or to anyone who reads these budgets and these reports. As you can also notice, going down page 37 in the variance column, a lot of those variances are zero. Like we were saying, a lot of things like we've just tried to hold the line on whether it's office supplies, forms, just as you read down the different types of accounts, things even like janitor supplies, hydro, heat, etc. Just trying to be economical there and not just increase things for the sake of increasing them, and just try to manage those expenses. The one big number that jumps out there in this page is the legal variance, and as we had explained in a previous meeting and the CAO had clarified, there's another offsetting adjustment for that as well in regards to reserves for legal expense. That's back to just a more regular level in 2026. So what you're seeing there basically is a budget amount that maintains levels of service. It's looking at what services are provided, and it's maintaining those services at a level equal to the previous year. Looks like some additions.
CAO, please.
The other larger change you'd see in those accounts is in relation to professional development, and that's because last year the professional development costs for myself and the all-staff training day had been put into other departments. This year it's being reflected in this line item to match how it needs to be reported to the province on our financial information return requirements, or the FIR. So that $12,250 increase is including almost $6,000 for the all-staff training day amounts that we need to do, as well as my reallocated professional development from other departments.
Council, you're also going to see that the grant to Heritage Renfrew, that wasn't something we had previously supported, but in the last conversations we had a budget, we agreed that we would go 10,000 on them. So you see that's reflected in there. Quick question. The grant to the Golden Age Activity Center this year is $22,795, and prior to that it says zero, but I have the impression we gave the money last year. Or was that under grants to organizations as opposed to?
Thank you, through. Yes, it was included in the grants to organizations line item. That's down a few lines within the 35,000 budget. It was included in there, and then we've just split them out into their own specific identities for this.
Thank you. Thank you. I assumed that, but I wanted to be sure. Thanks. Any other questions on the corporate management side? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to finance itself.
Okay, for finance, once again, on page 37, looking down the variance column, a lot of zeros there, not a lot of changes. Maintaining the expected level of service, the same services, processes, and activities. The first kind of notable change is insurance, the second last line on the page. Anticipating an increase in insurance there, which is a budget assumption we make. And the last line on that page, a WSIB Schedule 2 claim, which we talked about at a previous meeting, is an amount that is an expense that's self-funded from past Schedule 2 claims. We've got that in there at our estimate of $50,000 for the year. That was not under the 2025 budget line, but should have been. So that's been updated for that. And as we finish off that section on the page 38, you'll see legal fees reduced in the line there because it's been rolled up into another legal line. And so it's a decrease of $10,000, but it's picked up in other areas. We've done a increase for audit and accounting services, which is not unusual. Each year there's an additional cost typically built in there. And the last couple lines, there's no increase. So that rounds out the finance section with $68,000 increase in expenses.
So my impression is that prior to you getting here, actually, Mr. Hodge, I think council was having some serious discussions about going back to market for audit because we think we've been with McKilligans for 5 or 6 straight years, and we think it's a good practice every 3 years or so to go out. Is that the impression I had from council at the time? Yes, sir.
And that is something we're aware of in the timeline there, and that is something that's on our to-do list based on timing and the things you mentioned.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next year.
Okay, seeing no further comment, information technology. And Deputy Treasurer, I believe.
Thank you, through. Yeah, I'm going to just pull up a quick sheet that we created with the assistance of our managed service provider as well, because it outlines a lot of the key things for it. Sorry, if you can bear with me 1 second. All right, if we go line by line here, we'll start with the software. So the reason there's a variance there is this year, 2026 moving forward, and 2025, we actually still have 2 softwares overlapping as we're implementing VATM while using Assist. So there's a license fee for Assist as well as VATM. Additionally, in 2026, there will be our new budgeting software. So the Assist and the FMW budgeting software alone equal about 30,000. So the increase of 29,000 on that line item is made up of, oh, sorry, I was in the wrong one. That was in another software one. But anyway, that makes up the variance for the IT supplies equipment line item. Sorry about that. Additionally, the increase to some of the business standard licensing through our contractor, that's a partial reason for the increase. Those are all Microsoft products. Off-site data backups, that is increased slightly, so that makes up another little item, sorry, for the increase. Additionally, there was reallocation to move some of the website hosting expenses into the annual renewals within IT. So it's just been recommended in here. IT contracted services. And then IT contracted services actually went down because it was some of them was reallocated up in IT software. Just some basic little housekeeping items for a net increase of $33,200.
So if I might, this is always a kind of a soft underbelly people go after. Is there any partnerships with our adjoining municipalities or any partnerships for any of this stuff with, say, Renfrew Victoria Hospital or Bollinger Manor or Groves Park, not Groves Park probably, but, you know, a larger public service entity? Is there any way we can reduce some of these costs through partnerships?
At this time, I'm not aware of any investigation into partnerships with any of those entities, but it's something that we could probably look into. We are on a service agreement with our managed service provider for one more year. I think it's a 2-year. So that is something we could 3 for maybe 2 years. Sorry, but that's something we can still review even and see how it works with having a managed service provider as well. But yeah, that's something we could look into.
Okay, so I think it's the service provision piece, and I kind of get the impression from this budget that we're buying stuff to then be able to deliver a service. So the important piece is with the software and all the other IT stuff we're putting in place, that is compatible with our neighbors. So we're not buying the Smith product and everybody else is buying Jones's product. So this is fairly consistent across the sector, what we're purchasing. Please.
Yep, that is correct. It's worth noting once we are live, we will be dropping the legacy software, so that $20,000 that I mentioned previously will be coming off the books in 2020, hopefully in 2027. Like it shouldn't be much further into 2026 at this point. We're well into implementation and running almost every single module parallel with the exception of 2. In addition to that, part of this is a computer replacements program that we had not really been actively doing until the last couple years. A lot of our software and hardware, I guess, were dated back to 2018, 2019, some equipment. And we've kind of got a rolling cycle now with the help of the MSP to actually find things when their warranty's up, but when their actual service life's up, and be replacing them on an ongoing basis and managing an inventory rather than kind of replacing things as they die. So that's another reason for it. I think the $10,000 increase is partly that too. So yeah, it's just updating everything, getting everybody caught up, and then getting it into a cycle.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question is, you mentioned licensing. There is a reluctance to license 5 municipalities. They much prefer everybody to have an individual license, is my impression. So it's not, you can't even go out for a joint license, like a joint tender. Is that fair?
I don't have a concrete answer on that, but we can definitely look into that. But I could understand that perspective.
Okay, thank you. No further questions. So with that, corporate communications and the clerk.
Through you, Reeve. So with regards to corporate communications, this follows both the communication plan that our communication engagement coordinator has brought forward and set as part of the corporate work plan. Budget remains very similar to last year. Slightly less, if I'm not mistaken. However, the use of the budget and the overall plan has slightly changed, just to have a broader reach within the community. So incorporating kind of a multitude of different platforms so that we're not reliant strictly on whether it's just print or just radio or just social media. The overall approach is to try to hit many different demographics. Some of you may know we are losing one of our major prints, our newspapers, next year. So trying to be a bit more strategic on how we reach a demographic that isn't on social media. So again, just reallocating and relooking. So if there's any questions with regards to either individual line items or subscriptions or anything, certainly I can answer those.
Okay, just in terms of, and I was looking for my icons really fast here, BGITF or BGTIC or whatever it's called. I know what it looks like. What's the utilization of that, and is there any way of promoting it and getting it broader exposure, especially given with, the Eganville leader not being around?
So the Bay City app is actually, the uptake on that has been fantastic. We continue to encourage both members of council as well as staff to promote it within the community. I think the major benefit of that app is the real-time information. So if a road's closure, information goes out and people get it on their phone instantly. Certainly that is a movement, especially for the younger generations, to have the access to that information kind of that instant. Certainly there is a demographic that we're trying to incorporate and find other means to reach. But the licensing on the Bay City app is part of our website overall, so those they're kind of connected in between. But certainly I believe we've launched it earlier this year, and we've already got over 1,000. I don't have the exact numbers, but I can find out. But certainly, one time she said 600% intake in over a couple months. But it's growing rapidly, and I think again promoting the fact that it's real-time information instantly in your hand, which I think is great for everybody.
Okay, thank you. And this might sound a little cheesy, but is there a possibility of getting stickers put on our fleet? That drives people to this, say go there for new information like that, just to try and get 3,900 households on this app?
Through you, Reeve. I think that's a great idea. We have been using a QR code, which any of the key service desks do have those posters, and they're widely promoted. But I do think that the more we can get that QR code out, and if we can find some decals to put on our trucks or in different locations, I think is great.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and next, council. So we'll move to transfers, reserves transfers to and from.
Thank you. So, through the chair, reserve transfers to reserves is the next section. What you can see there is the first amount, CCBF reserve, as we've mentioned in the presentation, is the same amount for 2026 as it was in 2025. OCIF reserve, we're getting a little more there, and what this is showing those moving over into the reserves where we can use those to fund capital projects. That's what's happening here. And then going down the list, you can see there's a bit of escalation on each of the reserve transfers to try to maintain our infrastructure pace as best as possible. So each of the following lines has a bit of an increase over the previous year. And you'll notice the big change is the one-time credit that was moved into reserves in 2025 does not need to, we don't get that reserve again, so it will not be moving into a reserve this year. So that line has gone down by the 317,000 to 520. And so overall, the total to reserves is going to currently increase 161,850 as it's presented in the 2026 budget here. Sorry, decrease.
Yes.
Because of the 317, but a slight increase in each of the other lines.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving forward then, I don't see anything. Emergency planning, Chief?
Thank you, and through the Reeve. Virtually, as you can see, there's hardly any change through emergency planning for 2026. There were some reductions under the 2025 budget that we kind of retained, including staff training, which was reduced in 2025, and we had held that for 2026 as well. Other than that, everything is pretty well consistent.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then we'll move to special events. And Director Lutondras.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. So the one that we sort of control is the contracted services. So just to let everyone know that that includes the Santa Claus Parade, Canada Day, Frew Fest, special events, music in the park, Frew Year's Eve, Truth and Rec, Indigenous Peoples Day, and craft beer. So at this point, those are the special events currently done by the town and are included in that number.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then income property.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. So again, a few of those things are kind of out of our control, including heating costs, insurance costs. What is included is in contracted services. That includes the snow removal, grass cutting, HVAC inspections, cleaning, that kind of stuff. And then under building repairs and maintenance, there is some work that we didn't get to this year, including the stack on the furnace, which did come up in capital. So we have to decide how we're going to deal with that. But that's just a small amount in there just to, if there's anything that needs to be done this year.
Okay, and stack on the...
On that gas unit that broke, that one, we had been talking about
yes.
it,
Yes, thank you. That's what I assumed, but I wanted to make sure. Thank you. And then fire.
Thank you, and through you, Reeve. Again, as I mentioned, through emergency planning, there were not a lot of changes through the fire budget for 2026. The most notable would be under the equipment line, where we had requested an increase, and that was as per council's direction from last year to include both fire hose and bunker gear in the operating budget. In past, it was always a capital budget item, but trying to get away from purchasing, we'll say, 10 sets of bunker gear at a larger cost every 5 or 10 years. With this option, we would purchase possibly 2 to 3 sets every year and just continuously replace them. That would be the same for fire hose as well.
Okay, thank you. And again, I think just for memory's sake, can you explain overtime to us, please?
Certainly, through you, Reeve. Overtime is essentially when there's an emergency call that comes in and our full-time staffing has to come back and either cover the station or respond to those incidents. There's also agreements with other municipalities for first response as well as extrication. So in the event that our on-duty staff responds to Badmass and Bromley for an extrication call, full-time staff comes in to staff the station to ensure a response is immediate.
Okay, thank you. So it's essentially a very predictive guesstimate on your part, because you can't count the number of incidents you're going to have.
Through your Reeve, that's correct. It's based on previous year's numbers, and it can certainly fluctuate. Typically, our callback is approximately 200 calls per year, but it depends on what the nature of those calls are. Sometimes the backfilling of the station is not required, and it's really dependent on the call volume.
Okay, thank you. And OPP.
Thank you.
Treasurer.
Through you. So for OPP, we have the one main line, which is the contracted policing. And so for the OPP, they've given us notice that for their increases in 2026, that their intention is to cap the increase at no more than 11% over the previous year. So what we have here is we are putting in our budget the full 11% increase cap, because we have not yet received their confirmed invoicing for 2026 that they'll send out soon, but not yet, which we may see before the end of the year. And that is the variance of 406,508 is a budgeted 11% policing increase over previous year.
Okay, thank you. And detachment board, Ottawa Valley. Okay, Deputy Treasurer, please.
Thank you, through you. Yeah, this is the town's portion of the detachment board. I guess just our portion of the detachment board contribution for 2026. Councillor Legree might have some more info on that, but that's the amount that we had discussed and set aside. The other items you'll see up top, the wages and benefits, those are at a cost recovery. So we expense it, but you'll see an offsetting line item for revenue. So it's just the 18K being the town portion for 26.
Okay. So 13.8, we don't multiply that by 8 in terms of their that top line, because I think are there 8 members, 7 members? So do we multiply that by 7, and that's the total budget for salary on that board?
No, thank you, through you. No, it's that's the salaries for the year for everyone on that board.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. And then protective inspection and control.
Thank you, and through you, Reeve, to committee. Not a lot of change from year to year. There was a reduction in a few line items because it was originally budgeted for 2 bylaw enforcement officers, and given that there's only one, we had reduced the professional development as well as the uniforms. Other than that, everything else stayed consistent with the 2025 budget.
Okay, thank you. And building permit and inspection fees. Sir.
Thank you, and through you, Reeve. So no significant change here, just more or less a reallocation of salaries between the different functions of the department. Other than that, we're keeping the service level the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Property standards, I would assume that's you, Chief Guest.
Thank you, and through you, Reeve. There's nothing actually in this. I think it's been closed off now.
So out of curiosity, where would that 1,500 have gone? Or do we not need it? That's all. No, okay. All right, just thank you. Quite an accomplishment. Congratulations. Public Works, please.
Through you, Reeve. So I'll just go through some of the variances, and then if there's any other questions, let me know. So for our computer software, that has been included in our IT budget. The fuel is in the vehicles and equipment budget. For our contracted services, so with the changing or merging of the codes, this is going to be removed because it shouldn't have been there in the 2025 budget. We had included sidewalks and paved street maintenance in there, and we're going to remove that and reallocate. So our contracted services there includes our ongoing contracted services at the garage. So for asphalt patching contracted services, in 2024, we had included that in paved street resurfacing. 2025, it was understood it was going to go in the capital budget, but got missed. So that is adding back in. That is all contracted services from Greenwood or any other contractor to do patching services. Roadside maintenance. So materials and operating supplies, that is moved Some of that is moved to the asphalt patch and spray that I just referred to. Contracted services, that's a reallocation of that item in our public works contracted services, includes line painting, sidewalks, tree removal. More painting is in that budget as well for the boulevard and for those parking bylaw spots with the handicap parking spots that requires more paint. Also includes the PXOs from Partham. In traffic operations, the additional $3,000 in materials and operating supplies is based on new signs being required based on a retro reflectivity study. They're identified for replacement. And then any additional signage required. So for our winter control snow removal contracted services, that is our contract currently with BEI. We can decrease that number potentially based on our 2025 snow removal number. We have a couple more months of potential snow removal, but it's expected that most of that will happen in 2026. And for winter control, sanding and salting, that is kind of the same situation. Right now, where we stand, we could probably decrease that for 2026, but that is also dependent on the weather, and we do run a risk of going over if we reduce that. We have an increase of $500 in our winter control snow fence. We didn't previously have budget for that, and it was included in the materials and operating supplies for our general public works admin. Street lighting, contracted services, we have increased that due to requiring budget for the downtown, previously BIA street lighting, and Renfrew hydro services. And then in our urban storm sewer system, that number is drastically increased because we added $50,000 for CCTV. We pulled that from our capital budget and allocated half of that to storm sewers. We also have catch basin cleaning in that budget. We didn't actually spend much in 2025. We didn't do any catch basin cleaning, so there is additional budget to catch up on that this year. Thank you.
Okay, and very quickly, you mentioned something called PXO and then Partham, and I'm pretty sure I think that's the crosswalk maintenance, but if you could just confirm that.
Through you, Reeve, yep, that's a pedestrian crosswalk. The ones that have the lights with them. So that's Partham is a company that does the maintenance on those.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Legree.
Through you, Emo, and I'm not sure if Chief Guest or Director Bishop wants to answer this, but contracted service, the accessible parking spots, I think we agreed to paint the whole thing blue now for visibility, better visibility. Is that part of this number, or?
Director Bishop.
Through Reeve, I actually personally have not gotten a quote for the full painting. I know that Councillor Andrew Dick had suggested that part of those be volunteer too, so I'm not exactly sure where we stand with our budget for that line painting right now.
Okay, thank you. So I think part of the question about volunteers was liability and warranty, and I don't know that we ever asked for an opinion on that, but if we get an opinion on that, then we'd know which way we're going, CAO, if that's possible, from our insurance company or from, just an informed source, because I do recall that being part of the conversation. I'm sorry, Chief Guest.
Thank you, and through you, Reeve. I believe the initial plan of action was for the group to assist painting the entire parking spaces. However, given the locations of some of those parking spaces, it was thought to maybe move those activities to actually in the town lots, so they're not directly on the side of the road, where portions of that area could be secured for safety reasons. I'm not sure if there's any more information on that council wishes to seek.
Okay, no, I think we're good now between your actual information and my remembered information. I think we're pretty comfortable. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, and next, solid waste collection, please.
Thank you, and through you, Reeve. So for solid waste collection, that's our curbside collection, just some minor increases for inflation and contract increases. For waste diversion recycling, we do have an extra $20,000 there for contracted services. That is to prepare for the potential of the non-eligible curbside collection for businesses, which we don't have a concrete price on yet, but last we heard we would get that this week. But we do expect it to have a slight increase from what we're currently paying. For waste diversion, hazardous waste, again, just increases for inflation. For landfill operations, there was a lot of numbers that moved around as a result of the change from the old financial software to the new financial software. So we have moved some numbers around, but in general, we've only increased our budgets for parts and fuel and heavy equipment repairs. And otherwise, we've tried to keep it fairly consistent with the previous budgets. And then solar debenture principal, solar, again, just a few changes due to inflation, but we've kept equipment repairs and maintenance the same.
Okay, thank you. And again, curiosity question, property taxes, is that to the town rent for the county and education, or just county and education?
Thank you, through you. That's the reflection of the whole bill, and I believe it's for all three, but now I want to do a deep dive on that and get back to you with that info, but I can pull the bill.
Sure, because I had the impression it was an exemption, but it could only be, I misread something, so I'm just curious. Thank you. CAO, please.
In regards to landfills and property taxes, I want to say it was about 3 or 4 years ago, MPAC created a new assessment category, and there actually are taxed now. So even if this is the full bill, the portion that we would get to keep would be up in our tax revenue line, or if it was only the net, it wouldn't change your total at the bottom, just for clarification. So if we end up putting, let's say it's 30,000, but 15,000 stays us, it might show 30,000 expense, but 15,000 would be in the revenue line, so it'd still only be a net. But that was something MPAC changed about 3-4 years ago, and landfills are now taxed property code.
Okay, thank you. I had it backwards. Councillor Legree, please.
Through you, Vimo, just on the solar, just so I'm clear. So 2025, and I get they weren't operational for a few months, and they brought in 50,000. So in 2025, we lost about 15,556 on profit, net profit. But normally we would make about 19,000 a year on solar. Am I correct? Because we budgeted 18 profit, and it's costing us budgeted 2026 of 61,855.
Please.
Sorry, can you just repeat your question? I was looking at the numbers as you were going.
Sorry. So I understand in 2025, because they weren't operational, we lost like 15,000, 16,000 roughly. right? But normally, in a year that they're operational, we budget 80,000, and it costs us about 62,000 to operate. So the difference is what our net would be. Or am I missing something there?
No, that's a fair question. We will be generating more revenue throughout the end of the year. This is printed as of October 31st. Oh, November 3rd is the last update for the actuals, so we probably don't even have October's revenue identified yet in here as well. So there'll be October, November, and December that will have to get recognized as revenue. But for budgeting purposes, you are right that it does appear at this time we're budgeting for an $11,000 deficit at this time, but...
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and, I'm sorry, Director Withers?
Thank you, and through you, Reeve. So we are still working on some bugs out on equipment with the solar. We do have one transformer, called. There's a piece of an inverter. There's a piece of equipment that's still on the fritz, and we did replace 3 or 4 of them mid-year this year. So there's potentially 6 months of revenue that is less than what we would typically expect with fully functioning hardware. So standby 2026 might be a better year than last year or this year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next, we will move to parks if there are no further questions.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. So parks is only a, oh, sorry, I was looking at some numbers here. Got to get back to the right area. So parks is just a slight increase this year of $1,200. Again, the repair and maintenance includes repairs to things like fences, gates. The contracted services are services to playground structures, etc. And then hydros for things like the Millennium Trail lights, ball diamond lights, tennis court lights, etc. So only a small one there.
Okay. Okay, keep going then, please.
Keep going?
Yeah.
So recreation programs, there's an increase this year of 45,000. 21,000 is also increased in revenues. So we opened up more spots and camps. As well as March break. There also an increase in professional development for the day camp staff in order to get them more training, which includes training for dealing with children with autism, team building, etc., clothing for the camp staff, and then getting some more gymnastics instructors certified. And again, those contracted services are also increased on the revenue side. I believe actually we're putting out 16.9 but making about 21.5. So don't know if there was any questions on that.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll move over to facilities, recreation facilities.
Thank you. So we looked at some examples of those are janitorial. We updated it to more accurately reflect our 2025 spending. Again, it's been a little bit tough with the facilities, just getting that first full year in. So we're starting to have a better idea of where things are falling. Some of the increases were also like hydro and heat, which there's an expected annual increase. Contracted services is now a little bit more accurate, knowing what we're putting out for pest control, snow removal, water treatment, etc. Equipment repairs and maintenance was updated again to reflect what has so far been put out in 2025, what we're expecting to put out in 2025, and Yep, I think that's, I don't know if there's anything else that there's questions on.
Okay, and then, I'm sorry, Councillor McDonald, please.
Thank you, Reeve. To the director, page 46 at the bottom, I don't think I heard you, but we have in brackets the 484,000, which is the debenture principal, and then underneath that, debenture interest. Sorry, can you just clarify what was that regarding to? The bottom of page 46, right at the bottom.
Deputy Treasurer?
Thank you, through you. Yeah, that's the debentures that we just locked in for the Mattaway Activity Center expansion. That's just what the project was called. Those are the updated actual principal and interest payments for 2026. And the variance, what you're identifying is the variance from the 2025 budget. So the principal is being reduced and then the interest is going up based off that.
Okay, thank you. And then recreation vehicles and equipment, if anybody has any questions around those.
Thank you, through. Yeah, that's just all basic costs for our equipment. I don't know if there's anything there that's...
Okay, and then we'll move to library, please.
So the library, basically majority of it is a salary, I think 30,000. So the library is actually only looking at a 16,000 increase outside of the staffing costs.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I missed that number. I was reading. So you said the increase was...
So the total increase is 46,000, but 30,000 of that is staffing. So actual operations is only 16.
Great, thank you. That's... Okay, and next we'll move to museum, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor McDonald.
And thank you, through you. To the director. The actuals for 2024 with regard to the bottom of page 47, library supplies and equipment, the actuals were $3,000 approximately, and the actual for 2025 is 2,300, and we put them in for the budget this year for 12,000, so an increase of about 7,000. Is there something that specifically that we're looking for there? Right at the bottom of page 47.
I believe that was because two lines were actually put together this year. So we used to have like program supplies and then library supplies.
Oh, I'm sorry, CAO.
One thing to remember also with the library is the individual line item amounts is actually the library board who gets to determine the allocation. So really council and the committee can talk about the total overall net levy that you will be providing them, but you can't really tell them how to allocate amongst the lines. It's okay to ask questions as to why one line is one way or not, but I just wanted to remind that in regards to who has control of how much gets put into each of the individual lines in the library is the library board under the Public Library Boards Act. The committee can determine the total overall net amount, but it is definitely okay to ask questions, understand why certain amounts have changed, but just to keep that in mind as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Councillor McWhirter.
Through you, Reeve, for the director. 2025 budget and actual for salaries. The budget was 485 and the actual was 285. $200,000 difference. Is that just a administration thing or?
Okay, that's a very good question.
Yes, thank you. Through your, that was our QP agreement. So whatever was negotiated, it was negotiated, I think, or CAO might want to add to that.
I believe, for clarification, the question is why is the 2025 actual lower than the budget? Is that what the question is?
Yes.
and the treasurer can respond to this, but we do not have till the end of December, and obviously the budget is for a full 12 months of salaries and wages for those staff. But obviously, we don't have a full 12 months in the actual. I'm not sure when this actually cut off on the payroll numbers, and the treasurer can speak to that. I just wanted to make sure the right question was on the table.
Okay. And Treasury?
Okay, so yeah, the actuals are rolling updates based on when this report is generated. So we generated this one on November 3rd. So we anticipate when we get to the end of the year, we should be very close or at budget with the things like salaries and all those lines.
Said there was $200,000. I didn't think it would make $200,000 must be top loaded or something, or it just seems odd. But I mean, it is what it is. I guess it's our budget, but.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Treasurer?
Yeah, so not pertaining to one department as a whole, but just salary line items as a whole throughout this budget. When we're doing budgeting, we also have allocations within, like, we use an Excel spreadsheet, for lack of better, and we reallocate people's wages based off percentage of FTE. So for me, for example, there's a portion of my wage that goes into our department and then into water and then into sewer, because we touch kind of all these different items. So it's possible that this weighting is based off of salaries, and then you'll see it'll be affected through other departments, where you'll see like rec in 2026. You'll see the rec budget's really high for salaries, but what's actually, that includes whenever stuff's done at parks and programs and etc. So this could just be a weighting thing at this point, and until we have our year-end numbers, and then we can do an analysis of where the items are actually being allocated on their payroll, that's when we'd be able to determine why the variance is as it is. It's a fair question, it's completely fair, but until we have the year-end data and we can actually look and see if we might find that departments are over budget, but really it's just a weighting thing.
Treasurer?
What could be very helpful then is if you look at the 2024 actuals, especially for things like salaries and wages, under library, it's at 471. So you can see the escalating progression there of why the budget for 25 goes to 485, and then we go to 506. So you can see there's a consistent expectation there. So once we get our year-end finalized, 2025 actuals will fall in line like they did in 2024.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just, I didn't see it on anybody else's department. I just saw it on there, so thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for getting that clarified. And museums, please.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. So the increases are mainly things like we're starting to look after stuff. For example, the new sub-basement exhaust fan, contract to clear brush on the river side of the museum and the slopes has been added. So you'll see that the budget is slightly up for 2026 by about $8,000.
Okay. And council, no questions. Okay. Planning and Zoning Director?
Yes, thank you, through you, Reeve. So we are functioning well, not anticipating any change to service levels. Some reduction in salaries and wages and overtime. We're not planning on paying people less, but we did look at the allocation, moved some salary into water and wastewater, reduce a bit of pressure on the levy, but just realistically the contribution to that function. And then the other item sticks out a little bit, being legal and just introducing a budget there. We do have some unique legal matters that we deal with specifically related to planning. We thought it would be beneficial to mark out a line there for legal services. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Seeing none. And the BIA, I think we have already talked about doing the 50, sorry, that was the chamber, my apologies, BIA. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Reeve, through you. And if we can just go back to page 48, under the museum, can I just have an explanation for what the contracted services are for 1,000 and the other professional services for 1,500? Just an update.
Director?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I kind of had this on. I apologize.
Thank you. Back to page 48. Under museum, and looking for other professional services, we have 1,500, and then under contracted services, 1,000. I'm just looking for what it involves.
1,500. Oops, apologies. I'm not sure. That may be that might be an error. I'm wondering if that should have been under. Sorry, I'm just having a look here.
Yeah, as we're waiting,
I think that might be an error. I think that was for the professional development, so that could be on me. That may be able to come out. I'll double check. The contracted services, we now are looking at removing brush. So now that the fencing is there, we have to remove brush on the river side of the museum and the slopes, just for, yeah.
Okay, so you'll get back to us on the 1,500. Okay, thank you. Yeah, you'll get back to us on that 1,500? Yeah, thank you. And we've already gone through planning and zoning. And next we will move to, so BIA, Deputy Treasurer, please.
This is the BIA request that we end up in turn levying out through the BIA and catchment area. So this is the amount that was recommended by staff at the time of this preparation for 105. I have since received an email, if it'll pop up here, that there's no change to the requirement for the levy for 105. It has no levy impact because we collect and then distribute it back. But yeah, that's all.
Okay, thank you. And chamber, we've already had that conversation, I think. Economic development.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. So I think, I'm just trying to see, I'm noticing there's right, so the grants to outside entities has been moved over here, which is, that accounts for what you'll see is a $20,000 increase. That was in a different area of the budget, so it's now, which I believe is it CIP? Yeah, it's the CIP. Other than that, we've only increased it by not quite 1,800, which I believe is salary. So not a huge increase to economic development.
Okay, thank you. And tourism and promotion, please.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. Again, I believe we pretty much are just kind of maintaining, other than, heat, hydro, that kind of stuff. But we're still reviewing also. Hopefully for 2026, we'll be coming forward to council with a plan for tourism. So we just kind of went off last year.
Okay, thank you. So, council, any overall questions? I'm going to suggest we take a few minutes off, but just if you have any questions before we do that. Okay, seeing none, what we'll do then is break till 12:45. Is that enough time for everybody? Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome back to our viewers, and also thank you to council and staff. It's been a very productive session this morning and this afternoon to date. Right now, just switching gears for a couple of minutes. If the clerk could remind us about the extension of the timelines and how we extended the timelines for this committee beyond the previous deadline of 11:59 p.m. this evening.
Thank you, through you, Reeve Emo. At the regular meeting of council on Wednesday night, which was November the 12th, Town Council had motioned to request that Mayor Sidney consider an extension to the original 45 days noted in the Budget Committee's terms of reference. And that would provide more time for the committee to review the staff draft budget as provided. So upon direction from council, the Reeve has spoken with the mayor, and the mayor has issued an amendment to his original mayoral decision, which was MDE-2025-006, which extended the committee's review period till January 2nd, 2025. The amendment was issued through MDE-2025-011 and was circulated to council and posted on the town's website on Thursday, November the 13th.
Okay, thank you. All right, and next, could I ask the Treasury folks to remind, to remind us of the of where we are after all these discussions. I think we're still at the 8%. If you could break that down for us.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Reeve. So the number we presented here and we've started with is 8.81%. And what we're looking at, because how we've gotten there, is a few changes that are updates from 2025 budget to 2026. I'll just summarize those. One is an adjustment to the Sunshine Coach. There were a couple numbers there that are about $275,000, which would be 2.23%. There was an adjustment for recreation floor revenue for another $175,000, which would be 1.4%. There was an adjustment for OPP-related changes that represents 3.25%. The capital amount that we talked about earlier into the meeting today that was on page 14, which is 1.2%. And we also had an adjustment for WSIB scheduled claims, which we've been discussing, for 0.68%. So when you add all those percents up, you get to 8.88%. So easy to remember, three numbers the same, which is actually slightly more than 8.81 by 0.07. So without all of those adjustments, we would be just slightly less, not an increase at all, but actually a slight reduction of 0.07 over 2025's budget, backing things up from those adjustments from 2025 is where we stand at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And so my impression is that the best course to follow forward would be for council to offer direction in terms of what kind of a percentage is within their wheelhouse, and then allow staff time, probably a week to 10 days, whatever, to go back and adjust. I think we're looking at operating. I don't have the impression council wants to touch the capital budget. I think what we'd like to see is progress forward, and the projects that we talked about this morning are important ones, and then also the miscellaneous roads ones are important as well, because I think we have to continue to upgrade those problem areas that we have gotten behind over the last 20 or 30 years, and so I think the way forward is to take a look at have staff make some recommendations about the operating line and any other things, and then also just prior to that, if I could ask the CEO, my impression is we have a couple of funds that we might be able to use to help us lower the 8 to start with, and if you could just identify them. Mine is the one I'm looking at specifically is the rate stabilization fund, and I believe there's some an OPP fund as well. If you could just elaborate on some of the ones.
So through you, Reeve, there is a reserve that is a tax stabilization reserve. It is expected to be approximately $300,000 at the end of 2025. So that reserve is traditionally used when you have one-time increases in your budget, so that as opposed to raising taxes one year just to reduce them the next year, that you would use that reserve instead. So in this case, it's not quite the same, as this is not just a one-time increase. The budget line items that from the 2025 were just not included in 2025. It's not that they're just a one-time increase, but it is something that you could look at using a portion of if you wanted to defer the increase to the tax levy over 2 years. You could look at using a portion of that tax levy stabilization reserve. So for example, 150,000 use out of it, which would be about half, is a approximate 1.2% tax levy impact. The other one that you mentioned, technically the committee has already passed a resolution, so it would require a reconsideration to use only 50% of what was set aside from the OPP reserve last year. We only used 50% of it. You do have that other 50% that you could use this year. Again, does not save over a multi-year process, but would defer that tax levy impact to the next year as opposed to in this year. And I believe that amount was 156,000 approximately, so another approximate 1.2%. Those are two ones that could be looked at. The one would require a notice of reconsideration before it could be touched, as there has already been a decision at this committee for only 50% of the OPP reserve. In regards to the capital levy, so the only part right now out of capital items that's actually in your tax impact relates to the amounts that we set aside in reserves for our future capital needs. As we are aware that we do have lots of capital items that need to be addressed, and our asset management plan had indicated we should be looking at increasing that transfer into our reserves. So that capital levy you see of the, I believe it was 1.2% or sorry, the 1.2% for the 150,483. That was that part of that. So that's something that if council is not ready to make that increase this year, or sorry, the committee, then you could recommend that it not be. However, again, that just defers those future capital needs to a future year for tax increases as opposed to the current year. Those are some of the quick, easy adjustments. Most other ones, as the treasurer mentioned, basically all departments, other than those few specific line items, had come up with a negative 0.07% tax levy impact. So any more reductions on those could potentially impact services. So we would need to know what level of service the committee would be willing to entertain a potential impact to, for us to be able to search what type of increase, or sorry, decrease we can find.
Councillor McDonald, then Councillor Legree, please.
Thank you, Reeve, through you. Just to confirm, please, CAO, I missed it, the tax stabilization reserve, if you went into there, and are you talking about depleting it, which I'm okay with, so let's go worst case scenario, we deplete it. What did that affect in terms of the levy? How much was that one?
If you deplete it, sorry, just trying to, that was actually 300,000, so you'd actually be, you'd be looking at about a 2.4%, and you would not have any more in that reserve, which any surplus or deficits you experience in a given year would not be capable of being funded from that, which is where you typically would.
Yeah.
A follow-up, Reeve?
Yes.
And the third one, 1.2% you talked about, what was that again? What did you, it was a reserve, I think you, or?
That was the OPP reconsideration.
So there was the OPP reserve,
reconsideration.
which is about 156,000, so 1.2%.
Yeah, and then what was the third one, please?
The third one was the increase to the transfers to capital reserves, which was 150,483, or 1.2%.
So quick math, that brings it down to about 4.48. Councillor Legree?
Through you, Reeve, Emo. First off, I want to say thank you to the directors and their teams. I think to bring it in at, when we move all the other stuff, to a 0.07% increase over 2025, you obviously did your work, because that's amazing. Inflation in that is at 2.3 or something. I don't. So we're way under that. So great work to all of you. I would like to use the tax stabilization reserve, 150,000 of it, so 50%. I'd also like to, and I know it's a reconsideration, but the 156,000 in the OPP, we used half of them funds last year, and then there's 156 roughly left. I would like to apply both of them, so 150 of the tax stabilization reserve and 156,000, whatever change it is, out of the OPP leftover credit to offset some of this. So I'm not sure if we have to if I put a motion to see if other councillors.
I'm inclined to just have a general conversation, hear everybody first, and then we'll see if we can get a motion out of it. I know that's kind of unusual, but I'm not a big fan of a series of motions where it's like a breakfast luncheon where you go and take the bacon and you don't take sausage, but you take ham, but you don't take whatever. So I'd like to see if we can work at something out and then get to a spot, okay? And so, Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Reeve. And I lean towards what Councillor Gree has stated, but I would like to add to that, do we not put anything into the capital reserve, and that frees up another 1.2% for this year. So I would like to deal with all three of them, and but potentially next year we start dealing with the capital reserve. But I think there's been 2 or 3 years of drastic increases if we can do what we can. So that's where I lean. I'm in favor of what he spoke, but I'd also like to deal with the capital reserve.
Thank you. And Councillor McWhorter.
Through you, Reeve. So I agree with my fellow councillors. Definitely the OPP, what's left in there, use that to try to get the things down. I also agree with Councillor McDonald on using all of the 300,000. I think we could make a case that it is one-off. I certainly wouldn't want to see 7.8% at the beginning of next year's budget. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a one-off. It was a mistake, no doubt there, but it's one-off. So I think using that reserve is justified. And I'd also like to see the reserve that money we're putting in put off for another year, then knock that down even more. And I think the directors have done a great job. But going through the budget for operating just as we did there for a couple of hours there, I did notice there was some, there was items there that, I'm just going to pull this out, but wages in one of the, I think it was the museum, was 141, and then it went to, or 145, and then it went to 151 the next year. There was only a $5,000 or $6,000 difference, but this year they're looking for another $50,000 or $60,000. So I think being more realistic with the numbers of the increase they need year to year, I think there's room for maybe some savings in it. It'll add up, rather than see us go through the budget and start deleting things that. I think that if the directors are okay and take it back and have another blush and see if there's a room for any other savings that they can find at this time. I think they did a great job to begin with, but I think I've seen a few items that I'm sure there could be some more maybe possible savings if things are a little more realistic on the way they're rising from year to year. I think they could come up with some more savings. They've done a great job till now, and I don't want to take that away from them, but we're in dire need of finding some savings, because there's no way I'm going to vote yes on the budget as it stands. So thank you.
Thank you. And Deputy Treasurer.
Thank you. I just want to make sure council's aware while considering all this information that I know that there's discussion that this is one-off, but when you have a reoccurring operating cost and you're funding it out of a reserve, when you stop funding it out of a reserve, it hits the levy again. So using levy stabilization, for example, this year, pretend it's 2.5% this year. If that operating cost is in there still next year, as soon as that reserve is not there to be used anymore, you have immediate 2.5% on your levy next year. So while I appreciate all the funding ideas and financing, and we're encouraging them, it's just something to consider when making decisions that it could reduce today, but when it's operating costs, unless you remove the operating or the service, you're just kicking it down the road. So, for lack of better phrasing, but yeah, just something to consider.
Councillor Sobalski?
Thank you. Through you, Reeve, and listening, and yeah, I know we're all trying to figure out the right way to go about this, and I'll probably say a few things out of context here, but hopefully it'll draw together. But with respect, we didn't raise it, or actually we stayed pretty on par from last year's efforts. And I know personally I tried putting a lot of effort into that, and there was a lot of give and take on what we could do and couldn't do for line items. And it appears that we could do what we did last year, so maybe there's more meat in the bone that we can take. And to the Deputy Director's point, if we rob from some of our reserves, eventually these items are going to hit. So therefore, our operating budget's still too high. We have to shave it back. We have to cut services, and I will stand firm at that. And I don't want to pick on anyone, but sorry, these are the two that stood out, but $1 million almost to operate a library and a museum. Is that the right number? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. Our numbers being reviewed at a point where we can actually get this down. So I want to see it sharper. I want to see it better. I don't want to rob all our reserves. I want to get this operating at a fair level. And again, I'm open ears to what fair is. And if I'm not able to get what I want out of it, then so be it. But I'm going to push for it. 2%, Reeve? 2%. That's my number. Please find it. Thank you.
Okay. I'll be checking some cushions in the mayor's office, but I already did that for Tim Hortons Run Friday. Thank you. Yeah, in all seriousness, I get what you're saying, and that's where I'd like to be today. At the end of this day, is that we, the five of us, agree on a figure, and we give that to staff and ask them to go back and find that that number where we want to be, and then is it a formula of reserves or straight cuts or a combination of both, but they come back to us with a recipe that is the budget, and then we take a final look at it and then go to the public with it and then vote on it. So I agree with you. We have to find a number. So with that, I saw your hand, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Reeve. Through you, just to tidy up, and the word was used, kicking it down the road, and I get that, but I see it as more of just spreading out the pain a bit, so that we've had, like I mentioned earlier, we had the last 2 years where they were fairly high, but I do get what you're saying there, Deputy. So with regard to the library and the museum, to Councillor Sobalski's point, do you need a motion for that, or are we just directing staff to go back and find, because to the CEO's point, we don't have any say on the library's budget. It's just presented as a bulk number. So what does the CEO need?
Okay, so accurately, we don't have a say on the budget per se. We do have a say on the actual total allocation. So if they come in and asked for $2.7 million, and last year they'd only spent $770,000, then we could say, no, you're not getting 2.7, you're going to live with whatever it was last year. So to overemphasize it, but I think you understand what I'm saying. So that's how that operates. So we have an option, as Councillor Sobalski said, is pick a number. We would accept a budget increase when you include capital and operating of 2.87 or 1.97, whatever the number is, give staff that direction and send them back with it and say, can you bring that to us? Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Reeve. And I guess over to the treasurers. With regard to the library itself, what was the increase? I know I can find it in here, but we dealt with a lot of numbers today. What was the increase from last year to this year?
Please.
We have a slide in the presentation because we wanted to make sure everybody saw that. And I'm just going to flip to that page here real quick. The increase we put on page 16 is $57,670, and that is a 0.46% increase to the tax levy for the library as it's presented.
And Councillor Sobalski.
Thank you. And could I just ask what the budgeted amount was for 2024 in comparison to 2026 difference? The budgeted amount?
CAO, please.
The net 2024, so expenses minus revenues for the library, was $670,760, and this year the board has put forward $728,430. Again, 2024 was 670,760, and that was 2025, sorry, wrong year. That's 2025. 2026 right now is 728,430.
Yep.
Sorry, actual or budget? Okay, because the other two numbers I gave were both the budget amounts, 2025's budget versus 2026's budget. So the budget for 2024 was 611,222, so 611,222.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Reeve. Just to recap then to the board's CAO, for 2024, and we're talking library right now, it was 611. 2020, and we're talking budget. 2025, it was 670, and for 2026, it's 728. That's the number.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Councillor.
Thank you, Reeve, through you. And I guess to the floor, any ideas or suggestions as to what you think?
Okay. So, yeah. No, that wasn't it. I was actually, so what I would suggest is is there a number and send it back to staff, or or to Councillor McWhirter's suggestion, do we go through it line by line and hack away, and it might not be strategic? So I'm all ears. Pick a number and we'll debate it. Thank you. And you'd mentioned 2%, Councillor Sobolski. Are you thinking that's a motion?
Sure, I'll start the conversation on 2% as a motion.
Okay. And do we get a seconder to start that conversation? Oh, sorry. My apologies. And Deputy Treasurer.
I just wanted to get it to 2% or 2% less? To get it to 2%?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I have a dollar value just to put it into to numbers. That's the equivalent of $850,860. Just in a reduction. Yep.
Okay.
So we would be tasked with finding 850.
So what I think the motion would read, we worked on this a little bit, is that the Budget Committee directs staff to further review the staff budget in order to find additional savings and funding opportunities to bring the operational budget to a 2% tax levy increase, and further that a revised draft be brought back to committee for further discussion. So I think that's what you're looking for, Councillor Sobolski?
Yes, thank you, Review.
Okay, thank you. And so that was, I'm sorry, CL, please.
Could we get also further in a direction as to which departments or potential services that if we have to find an actual reduction in level of service to make the savings, which areas the committee is okay with? Because staff can't propose that without direction from the committee and or council. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, so let's Okay, so why don't we deal with this first, and then we'll have another motion talking about which services or service levels, we would be comfortable reviewing. Okay, Councillor?
Thank you, Reeve, through you. So with regard to what's on the table right now at 2%, are we going into what we just spoke about, the tax stabilization? Are we using that, the notice of reconsideration for the OPP, and then the capital reserve, like canceling that? Is that all part of it to get us to 2%?
That was the piece that said funding opportunities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, I think staff has heard the conversation here today. Okay, is there a comfort level of me calling the vote, or does there need more conversation? Councillor McWhirter, and then Councillor Legree.
I'm not sure 2% is fair, but I have a percentage in mind that I won't go above. But I think, in all fairness, Councillor Sobalski, I think if that's what he'd like staff to shoot for, I think we could shoot for that. If we were to talk about level of service, I'm wondering how that would work if we go and talk about that.
Well, I'm letting you talk while I figure that out for the next motion.
Because level of service to me means if you're taking levels of service away, why are you taking certain levels of service away? Like, what's the justification? Unless you're planning on, you don't have staff to do the job, then, like, we have equipment. I'm not sure how we could lose level of service other than losing staff, which we're not talking about, so that's up to the mayor. But so how would you lose level of service if you're not losing staff and you have equipment? I'm missing something.
Yeah. And respectfully, I think that, we can focus on that after we finish up with this, but you're right, I think there has to be some very suggested things. Yeah, and not around staff, you're right. Okay, because of the strong mayor power. Okay, and Councillor Legree, please.
Through you, Emo, I can kind of tell you where I'm sitting at this. I think 2% is a little bit low. My thought was more at 4% with the addition of using half the tax stabilization reserve, all the OPP, and then I think it's capital level reserve, taking that away. I was at 4%. And then the balance, if there whatever is left, would have to come out of operations somewhere.
I don't think I understand that. So I'm just to make sure I'm clear. Are you saying the 4% in here with all the funding stuff, or are you saying you're starting at 4%, use all this stuff, and drive it down under 2%? Because that's how I took your statement, and I maybe am overthinking it.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm at 4% with using some of this tax stable. I don't want to use all the tax stabilization, I think, because next year's probably not going to be much, you know what I mean? It could be a little bit better, but there still could be issues, and we need to keep some of that. But all of the OPP, the 156,000, whatever, I want to use that to take it down, and the rest comes out. I can do the math, but the rest would have to come out of operations and somewhere, if that makes sense.
Okay, CAO, and then Councillor Sobalski.
So to summarize, use the tax stabilization at 50, the reconsideration of motion, which would be required for the OPP, which I just looked up is actually 158,760, and then the not increasing capital reserve transfer. Those three items together would bring our 8.81 down to, I think, about 5.1, 5.15, somewhere in that range. So you're then saying find operating to get that extra 1.13% down to 4. I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. Is that correct?
You're absolutely correct. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Sobalski.
Yeah, thank you, through Reeve. And I'm not in arguments with Councillor Legree. The intent of the 2% is always just a challenge. It's a task. Can we find more? Is there more there? If we set just the 4%, although it would be an achievement from where we're at, did we miss something? Did we run the process tight enough? Did we skim enough? I would like to that's why I'm at 2%. Again, it's a negotiation. We're going to come back. I really anticipate staff's going to do a good job of laying out the options, as was just discussed with the CAO, in different operating ways and what it looks like. And we get to have choices like we did in the 4 option blocks that we went through with capital, what this might look like. I'm kind of hoping that 2% creates a couple different avenues and another discussion on what's going to be best for us. That's the reason for a tough ask.
Okay, can you live with that? The staff has heard the conversation. We'll start we'll vote on the 2%, and then if they come back with a different number with some options, then we'd have to consider it. Is that okay with you, Councillor? Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much. I know it's a very unusual approach, but I like being unusual. All those in favor? Opposed? None? Is carried. Thank you. Now, we were talking, oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss you?
Yeah, no, I'm okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Interestingly enough, out of the corner of my eye, Director Bishop has a similar color to you, and so every so often she raises her hand, so behind you is like, so I just see a hand flash, so we'll have to get her wearing bright green or something from now on. And so there was some discussion about levels of service. Do you want to have that discussion today, or do you want to entertain that when they come back with the options on the 2%? Come back? Okay, thank you. Now, you had a motion. Did you want to continue with your motion on the what happened, how we got to the missed numbers in last year's budget, or did you want to save that for another day?
Thank you, Reeve. I had 3 more, and I'm going to bring the others next week with regard to a motion itself.
Okay.
But I do want to deal with one more before. So we don't have to suspend the rules for this. I can just go ahead and bring it to the table, or what would you like, Clerk? I'm looking at you.
Why don't you ask me directly, and I'll let you know how we're going to do it.
Thank you. Do you want me to read the motion and then?
Sure.
Okay. The council opened the floor for full discussion regarding the town of Renfrew's 2025 budgetary year, specifically addressing the circumstances that led to a near $1 million misallocation, and direct staff to provide recommendations, safeguards, and confirmations to ensure such significant errors do not occur in future budget processes. Further, that no final budget decision or commitment be made until we can implement and ensure that the controls are in place with proper checks for redundancies, so that we don't have another reoccurrence of this. And it was interesting to note that we would have been close to almost a 0% budget had we not had to capture these errors. I also get to the fact that we would have had to capture it last year, but I'd like to find out what happened and what issues can be dealt with.
Okay. We were just chatting to make sure I understood the process, so I agree with you. I think this is the time, because we're talking about the budget. So I would suggest that in your preamble that you suggest that committee forward it to council as a motion, and then we would have that discussion at council, and that's then direct staff to generate a report, so that they know what the report would be after all of council has an opportunity to have the conversation.
Just to confirm, Reeve, you'd like this to come forth as a motion for the regular one, which is next week, right?
Yes.
Am I correct?
Forward it to council, yes.
Okay.
For discussion.
And it'll be on the agenda.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's your motion, is to forward it. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, perfect. All those in favor? Or, sorry, discussion? I'm sorry. I didn't see anybody looking like they're racing to put their hand up. All right. All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you very much. So with that, I think we've got through our day. I'd like to thank council. I think we've had a really good couple of meetings sorting out how we want to move forward. And to staff as well, thank you very much. It's challenging because we know we have to find money. We also have to continue doing things because you can't stop the progress of the corporation. I know people hate when you say that, but the reality is it has to have some, it's not a living being. not even in law, I don't think, but at the same time, you still have to recognize that there are needs for the community that are funneled through here. So, I think it's a delicate balancing act, and I certainly appreciate it. But I really have enjoyed the civil tone everybody has used when talking about it. It's been respectful, been good questions, great answers. And everybody came prepared, which is a very, very gratifying to see. There are times in my life when I've gone to budget meetings and I felt I was the only one that read the documents, so that's not the case here, so that's good news. And so, again, thank you to Council for your patience in allowing me to sort of manipulate the process, and I mean that with a small m, not a big M. And then to staff also for being prepared and ready to answer. So what we'll do is we'll set the next budget committee meeting. It's got to be determined. So what I'll do is the CAO and I and the treasurer will sit down and have a conversation to get a sense of how long this will take, and we'll send out a couple prospective dates. I'm guessing either towards the end of next week or the beginning of the following week, which would be the first week of December. So we'll send out some dates around that because I think it's going to take several days for them to munch their way through this stuff. So the next regular council meeting is November 25th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. And so I'd like to call an adjournment on this budget committee meeting at 1:24 p.m. Thank you.